All right, right on. Alderin, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Tell me, where are you from?
Where I was born is Grass Valley, California.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in the foothills.
In the foothills, Grass Valley. Is that southern or northern?
It's Northern California. There's so many tunnels where they were digging for gold underneath our town that they're afraid that parts of it are going to start falling into it.
Really?
So there was more people living in Grass Valley, California than Los Angeles and San Francisco combined at one point, because they're all digging for gold.
Oh, so it was like one of the gold rush zones.
Yeah, the gold rush. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So, I mean, obviously the population's decreased a lot with time. Does that mean there's a lot of like kind of ghost town elements to it, or?
No, actually, it's turned into where people from the Bay Area come to retire. So when I was there was about 2,000 people in the town, so it was a real small town. But it's up to about 15,000. And the downtown used to be like bars and hardware store and sporting goods store, and now it's like coffee shop, boutique, and all the wine tasting and all this other stuff. So they've really transformed it into like a tourist, rich people come there to retire place now.
Oh, interesting.
That's beautiful.
Okay.
I mean, you got the hills and the pine trees and the lakes and the Yuba River's right there. So it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I'm actually from a former mining town in Utah that's now a ski destination, so kind of similar. So do you go back there and visit often, or?
No. I didn't enjoy my time there.
Oh yeah?
It's a very white, very redneck kind of town. I mean, maybe it's changed as people have moved in, but I just don't have any desire to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that rough then, like in high school and stuff like that, with that culture?
Yeah.
So you felt like an outcast during that time period, or?
I was trying to be vegetarian even in high school growing up there, because I saw a traveling assembly. They used to have, people would come to your school and put on assemblies. And I don't even know if our school really knew what they were getting into with these guys, but they got up there and showed like pictures of slaughterhouses and all this stuff. And I just remember being so impacted by what I saw during that assembly. I think it was 8th grade, 7th grade, somewhere in there, that like I knew I didn't want to eat animals anymore. I didn't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
And so in high school I was trying to be vegetarian in a place that was all meat all the time. Everything that's on the menu for lunch is either dairy or meat. And my mom was trying to support me in that, but I mean, it was difficult, very difficult.
Yeah, no, I imagine.
And then, being a little, I mean, I'm not as flamboyant as a lot of people can be, but, obviously when I was a baseball player, just the way I ran, the way I threw the ball, people knew. So I had that, that label of being a gay person in that town, and the rednecks there. Oh my God, they're horrible.
Oh yeah. So what time period was that in?
I graduated in 97.
Okay, yeah. So the homophobia of the 90s was definitely So I imagine you kind of got out of there as soon as you could.
Yes, I got out of there. I went to Sonoma State, studied psychology, and then went to the University of San Francisco for my master's in psychology.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you went vegetarian, or you were at least doing your best in high school, and then that continued on?
Yeah, as soon as I got to college, I could really, eat and live the way I wanted to live. So, but it really took to that point. And I didn't understand back then the horrors of the dairy industry. So I was still cheese every once in a while, or some dairy would get into some cream sauce or something, and I would eat it. But now I understand what a cow has to go through to produce dairy.
Yeah.
So I don't support that anymore. No creature wants to be pregnant its entire life. No creature wants to be confined in a small space and constantly milked its entire life. So even if you are a small rancher, with a beautiful ranch and a beautiful farm for these animals, no animal wants to be treated that way. It is an inhumane practice, no matter how you do it or where you do it. It's inhumane.
Yeah.
So, a dairy cow's life is only about 4.5 years, because once it's not able to produce the milk that they want in the quantities that they want, they will send it off to the slaughterhouse. So a normal cow's lifespan is about 20 years.
Yeah.
So already you're cutting this animal's life to a quarter of what it would normally live, and you are constantly forcibly impregnating it and milking it for just your profit. Its entire life, you take its baby from it, and it never sees its baby again. Mm-hmm. The baby is isolated and put into a pen until it is at a large enough size to be impregnated. If it's a male baby, it's usually just destroyed. Mm-hmm. So, it's a horror industry no matter how you do it. And, if you look at like groups of people in the world that don't have dairy, like they can't digest another animal's milk. It's not normal. And if you don't expose your kid to dairy milk at a young age so they can kind of develop the enzymes to break it down, they're not going to be able. They're going to be lactose intolerant. Humans are naturally lactose intolerant for milk that comes from other animals.
Yeah. It happens during like the weaning process when you come off of your own mammalian milk and then. Yeah. And so I'm curious with this assembly that happened while you were in high school. Was that something that, back then it was like there was no way to then say, hey, I saw this thing to your parents and let me show you online or anything like that.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else that you remember in your class or anything that was impacted by what they had seen or people that you talked about?
No, I really went on that journey myself.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody that in my class that I remember talking about it or making changes, but I don't know, for me, I've always felt a compassion toward animals. Even as a little boy, raising rabbits, raising dogs, like you look into their cute furry little faces and like there's no instinct as a child to want to harm that animal or to eat that animal or to drink its bodily fluids or anything like that. You want to play with it and connect with it and have a relationship with it. And I carried that with me. So when I saw the baby pigs, which are the fourth most intelligent animal on the planet, with a cognition about the level of a 3-year-old child and the emotional level about a 3-year-old child, when I see a baby pig being treated that way, where its teeth are being ripped out and its tails are being cut off and horrible, disgusting conditions. Like I saw that in 8th grade and just went, I cannot believe that this is what happens to create bacon. This is what happens to create pork chops. And I knew I didn't want to eat those things anymore. It's harming animals that don't deserve it.
Yeah. And then so when you went on to study psychology, was a lot of that kind of interconnected with your sort of journey in becoming vegan?
Yeah, I was going to be a business major. That was going to be my thing. But I've always wanted to help people in some way. I think a lot of that is because my mom was such a broken individual, a wonderful individual, but also a very broken individual. She was in an abusive relationship through most of my childhood. She was beaten and yelled at and things broken in her house, and I had to listen to that for hours at a time, more days out of the week than not. She'd kick him out and put a restraining order and need flowers to start showing up at the door, and and it was just this constant cycle of abuse. She'd take him back, he would abuse again. But anyway, so I think my interest in psychology was, why would my mother put me in this situation as a child? What was going on in her head that would create that? And still a wonderful person. Like, I don't want to say my mom wasn't a wonderful person. She was a charge nurse. She took care of her patients. She took care of the doctors there. If a patient came to her and said, I need money for this or that, she didn't have money to give, but she'd find it. She'd help that person. But then at the same time, she'd come home and allow this horrible situation to go on in her own home and have her child affected by that. So, what is that? Low self-esteem, abuse from her childhood. I was curious, so I think that's what kind of propelled me towards psychology. How can people be one thing and the other thing at the same time?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And then, so at what point did you start connecting those dots with dairy and eggs and whatnot to sort of make that jump from vegetarian to vegan?
I mean, it's a compassion thing. I mean, I wanted to help my mom, so that was probably the psychology part of it, and just not wanting to hurt animals, not wanting to see more pain, not wanting to be the cause of suffering. Like, I'd rather help than hurt. Just a basic orientation like that. So why would I eat something that's causing pain in this world when I don't have to? When you can eat something else that's healthier for you, that doesn't cause pain. And why would I go into business and sell, car stereos when I could help people instead? Like, what am I going to use my time for? What's the meaning of it all on this planet? Like, I'm not a religious person, so I don't believe that I'm going to drink some grape juice and eat a cracker and heaven's going to be waiting for me. Like, I know that I have this time, this very limited time, to be something. And and am I going to be something that hurts others? Am I going to be something that hurts animals? Or am I going to be something that helps? And I chose to be something that helps.
And what kind of sacrifices did you feel like you had to make to make that decision?
Well, I don't know. It's really hard to eat vegan if you're not cooking your own food. So I don't know if it's a sacrifice, but you got to learn to cook. Like, so many people don't have any idea how to cook, and it's not hard. I mean, I know how to make wonderful soups and stews in like 20 minutes and make my own hummus. You just blend garbanzo beans, put in a little bit of oil and seasoning and whatever flavor you want. You can make the most beautiful hummus. You don't have to pay $4 for a little tub. You could make tons of it for less than probably 20 cents if you buy your garbanzo beans in bulk. It's things like that. I mean, I make my own kimchi. So, I buy my Napa cabbage and chop it up and put the red peppers and all the flavorings in there. And if you buy kimchi at Trader Joe's, it's like $9 for a little jar. I make, $5 worth of kimchi is like 3 giant, 2-gallon things of kimchi. So it's like just learning that kind of stuff. So I don't know if it's like a sacrifice, but it's learning how to live that's counter to how everything else is set up in this society, right? So this society says, go out and buy it. If you want it, go out and buy it. Go to the restaurant and buy it. Go to the store, buy it. It doesn't say make it yourself. It doesn't say be self-reliant. It says go make money, but then spend it on other things. So it's different. You're living counter to the culture by being a vegan.
Yeah, which comes with a variety of sacrifices.
Yeah. Now there's vegan restaurants and everything, but I can't justify spending $14 for a salad or a bowl of soup that I can make for pennies and better. So yeah, this the whole consumerism thing doesn't really jive with me either. I make my own food. Everything that I buy, if I need it, will be the Goodwill or some secondhand. I look for used first. I don't want to have to be responsible for more resources being used to create something that I need when that something already exists in a used or recycled form that I can also use for myself and works just as well. So try not to be material as well. And I think that in psychology I learned what the principles were to be a happy person. And I kind of worked those over in my head as I've gone on through my life about what those are. But materialism and consumerism never makes anyone happy. It's more like a hole that you're trying to fill up. You can try to get a nicer car, a faster car, a bigger house, or whatever. But the things that are making you unhappy still persist no matter what you own. And you also aren't going to be able to take that with you. So for me, the principles of compassion are first. Or of happiness are first compassion. So you have to care about what's around you. You have to care about your home. You have to care about the animals that are living there. You have to care about the people around you. And that caring, that compassion is what creates a connection. Like your roots to where you are, your space, the people around you, the environment that you live in. So if you don't have a connection, if you feel like you're alone on your own island, you're not gonna have that emotional connection to people or the place that you're living in. That's going to be what you would need for happiness. Because happiness, we are tribal creatures. We are pack animals. We need that connection. Mm-hmm. So if you're not first having a compassion and a connection and a caring about the things around you, you're not going to make it to happiness. So the second step after compassion is connecting with people and finding common purpose with them. So, you find something you care about, some problem that you care about, and there's plenty of them in this world. It doesn't have to be, animal activism like I do, but I mean, the elderly are treated horribly, the children are often abused, the pollution is out of control. I mean, find something about this place that you care about and get involved and find people who share that common purpose with you. Mm-hmm. That's going to also help you create happiness, because now you've got purpose and connection with people doing something that matters. Mm-hmm. And all that's going to give you a feeling of satisfaction and purpose and drive more than chasing after some material object. So, after purpose comes planning, making a plan for the future, your goals that you're working on with people to achieve. And I feel like if you can make the compassion, the connection, the purpose, and the plan, you can find happiness. But if you don't have those things, I feel like it's hard, because then you are looking toward material objects, you're looking toward substances, you're looking toward quick fixes, you're looking to quick highs. You're looking for artificial stimulations, things that aren't going to make you happy. They're going to leave you empty, because once they're done, once they've made their impact on you, they're done, and you got to go get more. It's not a sustainable feeling. So I just gave a presentation at a old folks home, senior center here in Portland. And it was just about that, because a lot of them are at their end-of-life struggles right now. And what do you do when you're not physically fit anymore, when your cognition is declining, when your family members have passed away? And what do you do when you're just in a place where you see people passing away and being carted out all the time? Well, you still matter. That's the first thing you realize, is that you still matter, that your choices, even in a senior center at the end of your life, still matter. What you eat, who you talk to, what you do, who you call, what you get involved with, it's all still the same, whether you're 80 or 70 or 60 or 50 or 40, 30, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. Our choices all matter equally, because it takes all of us to accomplish something. Mm-hmm. So that was my message to them, that, if they're still eating meat or causing things that are polluting the environment, that they could be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. They could get together with each other. They can form that connection in groups. They could make phone calls. They could boycott management to get the kind of food that they want to eat there. There's so many things that they can do, even at that age, even in a wheelchair, even in a walker. They still have power. They still have a lot of power. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. That's really well put together. I like hearing that. I have a question about it. Like, what would you say is a good starting point or a good stopping point with a certain activity, perhaps social media, in terms of finding purpose and connection and disconnecting from materialism and
yeah, so you got to find people who are already doing it and doing it well. So there are groups like in Portland that, even if it's just attending, like there's a group called Northwest Veg, and they have potlucks twice a month. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's 2 or 3 times a month. And they have guest speakers that'll come in and talk during the potlucks. Everybody brings their vegan food, and everybody sits down and eats, and then a speaker will get up and talk about something of importance, some kind of health or related or environmental related cause, and they'll talk about it. My partner is giving a talk, June 9th, I want to say, at the East Side, Northwest Veg, and he's going to be talking about brain health and dementia, and how a whole foods, plant-based diet really helps with that. I mean, people who are on it, their cognition improves, their dementia decreases. It's almost miraculous when you cut out these animal fats and these chemicals and these things that are normal in American diet and focused on just whole foods and plant-based. Your mind just clears up and things that you're dealing with get better. It's amazing. For myself, I just had my blood tested in April. My cholesterol is at 150. They basically say that anybody with a cholesterol level of 150 or lower cannot get heart disease. And that's what's killed my mother at 52. That's what killed my dad at 62. It's heart disease. So to know that I'm living a lifestyle that is going to beat my genetics is amazing. Like, I have created an environment in my own body that I cannot get the thing that killed my parents. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's really remarkable. And in context to veganism and the kind of the prevalence of social media going kind of in different fad directions and whatnot, I feel sometimes nowadays when I see there is a resurgence of sort of anti-vegan messaging online.
Yeah.
And I worry that there is perhaps a decrease in young vegans and things like that. Is that a sense that you share as well, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I think COVID had a lot to do with an increased level of depression, an increased level of tribalism, an increased level of individualism. We have seen in the animal activist community, we are just not getting people to come out and care about things like they did pre-COVID. So I would say that people have a lot of disconnect from their world right now, that COVID kind of threw everything upside down, and there's a lot of just people going out and indulging themselves, finding their tribes, not wanting to do the hard work of getting to know someone who's different or work with someone who's different or get involved with causes that don't have a direct benefit to them. But it's getting better now. I think people have learned to kind of live with COVID, that we're starting to see numbers come back and people get involved again. But yeah, I feel like just looking around on the streets, people are really unhealthy right now. I mean, people are just not taking care of themselves. And if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to start taking care of something else? Like, really, step one is to take care of yourself, to detoxify. Oh, and that's one of the things about happiness I totally forgot. Detoxification is a huge step. So detoxifying your body, obviously with a whole foods, plant-based diet, and cutting out the chemicals, because even when you eat meat, there's the animal goes through a hell of an experience at the end of its life. Okay, so even like the dairy cow that's done with its with being milked and off to the slaughterhouse, it's put into a truck for 4 to 5 days and take up to even more, where it's taken to the slaughterhouse. And in that time, it's not given any kind of food, it's not given any kind of water. And these are intelligent animals, so they know what's going on. So by the time they get to the slaughterhouse, some of them are so weak that they're called downers, and they have to basically tie a rope to them and drag them by a tractor into the slaughterhouse. But the amount of fear, the amount of pain that the animal is going through at the end of its life before it's slaughtered, it translates to adrenaline, and it translates to cortisol getting into the meat that people are eating. So this adrenaline and this cortisol has been directly related to a whole host of health problems that people are facing. And just eating the meat alone and getting these chemicals from these animals, from the fear and the horror that they went through at the end of their life, is causing health problems, anxiety, depressive disorders, heart problems in us, just from eating the meat.
Wow.
Yeah, so to be happy, you have to detoxify from those horrible chemicals in the meat and in the environment. And it's not, it's detergents, it's antibiotics, it's all the stuff that they use to, in the animals in the slaughterhouses that's also getting into the meat that you're eating. So detoxify physically, exercise is very important. But also detoxify emotionally. And this one's tougher. And therapy helps, but a lot of us are carrying wounds from our past that are holding us back. A lot of parents just don't know how to be good parents. They haven't protected us from a lot of the traumas, and we're carrying that with us. So like when I was at the senior center, what I was telling them is that the past, it doesn't exist. It's no longer happening. You're not even the same person you were when those things happened, because every day we're transforming, every day we're changing, experience is changing us. So if you're looking at something as a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old, it happened when you were 20, none of that exists. The only thing that exists is our memories. And how we remember things is based on our perspective, based on who we are at the moment that we're remembering things. So the point is that the past, it doesn't exist. It's all in our own head. So if it's in our own head, and it's our way our own brain is processing and telling a narrative about who we are and how we came to this point in our lives, that means we can impact that and we can change it. So it's in our control to let go of our past. It's in our control to redefine who we are in the moment, to be what we want to be in the moment. So detoxification is also about letting go of all the knee-jerk reactions that we created from the abuses in our lives. And what I mean by that is like when you touch a hot stove and you burn yourself, you recoil. And your brain goes, oh, don't touch a hot stove, I'm going to get burned. The same thing happens with abuses in our lives. If someone did something to you at some point in your life, you went, oh, I don't want to be involved with that kind of person anymore. I don't want to get burnt again. So you build these knee-jerk defense mechanisms throughout your life. And they get into your brain and they really stop you from being in the moment, because your brain's like, well, don't get involved with this because this thing could happen again that happened before in your life. Don't take this risk because this could happen. Like your brain is trying to protect you, but it's not. It's keeping you from being fully present in the moment, doing what you need to do. So detoxification is also about letting go of all those defense mechanisms, letting go of the past, and redefining yourself in the moment about what you are and what you can do in the moment and the goals that you have set yourself for the future. Past doesn't exist.
Yeah. No, that's well put. That's really interesting. You got me caught up in that. I forgot what question I had. Let's see. So, as far as your experience as an animal activist, when did that start?
Gosh, it's been on and off. But I mean, so I have been dealing with a little bit of an anxiety disorder just from the traumas of my own past that I've had to work through my whole life. So that's kind of kept me from really getting involved in the way that I want to. But now I would say within the last 5 years, I've really gotten involved and gotten over those fears. Like before, being in crowds would make me very nervous. Didn't kind of avoided those kinds of situations, but now I'll get out there with a bullhorn, and lead a crowd. So, so like detoxification, when I was talking about, it's not an instant thing. Like this is something you work on your whole life, and depending on how severe the abuse was, it might take you a lot longer to get better. But I mean, it wasn't just the stuff with my mom growing up. I was horribly bullied as a kid. dressed different, acted different, really bullied. I mean, I remember like in the first grade, kids would chase me around, and I couldn't even get to the restroom to use the restroom as a first grader because they kind of hang out in the restroom and harass me. And if I'd go in there, they'd like climb up on the stalls and look under and just like really give me a hard time. I was overweight too, as an overweight child.
Okay.
So they really were teasing me about my body and everything else. So yeah, that was a lot of, I don't remember what I was saying with that, but there was a lot of abuse that I had to deal with as a child that, it caused like a fear of public restrooms for me for many years. Like I couldn't even be out in public in a restroom just because that stuff would come back. So I mean, I guess now that I'm 44, I'm able to look back on the things that I went, well, that was a crazy defense mechanism that my brain developed to not be in a public restroom, even though I have to use the restroom. Like, can we get rid of this? Because this doesn't help me in the moment, right?
Yeah.
This is not benefiting my life in any way. So, and it's the same thing. Like, I want to be helping animals, like, because if everything. If I feel like even if I convince one person to go vegan and care about animals, that's like 200, 300 animals or some ridiculous amount that gets saved every single year. Mm-hmm. So I just saved all those lives, or help them save those lives, help being the inspiration for them to save those lives. So the more I can do, the more I can help, ease the pain. Not that I'm going to say that all the world's problems and abuses are my responsibility, but I feel like if I have the ability to help, then it is my responsibility to help. Not to the point I'm burnt out, not to the point I'm depressed. I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't have a successful event, but if I can help, I should help. If I have some time free on the weekend, I should go do something. Like, why not? What do I do? Mm-hmm. And then I have a partner that is just wonderful in all of that. So, the two of us together, we plan these events, we do these things. And, it's almost a shame he's not here, because I feel like I'm a better person, I'm a better individual, I'm a stronger person when he's around, and he's the same way. So we're stronger together than we are separate. So it's amazing to have someone like that, in my life, that, the things that are most important to me are also the things that are most important to him, and we work together, to make an impact and try to make things better. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So with your personal detoxification period, did you recognize it as it was happening? Or was it a thing that you had active activities that you would do to help with that process, or what was your process like?
Yeah, so kind of out of left field, one thing that I did is I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute when I was in college.
Okay.
So my mom died playing tennis with me on my 23rd birthday. She came up from Grass Valley. I was at Sonoma State at the time. Uh-huh. I had just started my master's program, actually. And so she came up on my 23rd birthday, and I made veggie burgers for breakfast, and then we went out to play some tennis. And the plan was to meet up with my ex-partner at that time and go bowling later on. So we had this whole plan. But basically, she had taken these heart medications for like 10 years that way too late they realized weakened the heart muscle. So coming off of those, she had a lot of damage to her heart. And she was only 53 at the time. But, when we went out there and just started to warm up, she had just popped like 800 milligrams of Advil because she had arthritis in her back. And, if you look at the Advil website, it basically says that if you have heart conditions, if you have high blood pressure and everything else, don't take high doses of Advil. It could cause a heart attack. It literally says that. But she took like 800 milligrams of Advil and died of a heart attack 20 minutes later. I hit the ball to her. She fell over backwards, hit her head. I called 911. Tried to do CPR. A paramedic just happened to be walking her dog at the same time and came over there and did CPR. So she had every chance to survive, but she didn't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a horrible experience to go through and very traumatic. So your detox period obviously
Oh
would have
yeah,
to do a
so
lot
I'm sorry I
with-
didn't connect those things.
Yeah, no, you're
so,
fine.
Well, so yeah, I don't even know what happens when we die or what the afterlife was, but boy, I sure had the experience of feeling like my mother was around me for many weeks after she died.
Really?
And it was to the point where it was impacting my sleep. It was like nightmares, and every night it was like horrible nightmares where we would be going on a trip together and we'd be at the airport and we'd be looking for our gate, and then it'd be high stress because we were going to miss our flight, and then I look over there and she'd have that same expression of like when she died on the tennis court with me, and she would just die in my dream, and it just kept repeating. So I needed help. I was really suffering. So I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute not even knowing if anything was real or anything, and they did a reading on me. You know, they said a bunch of stuff about how she was still like trapped here, unwilling to turn around, unwilling to go move on to like the afterlife. And, you know, they said that they were communicating with her and doing all, you know, to giving her healing and trying to help her move on. And I'm just sitting there going, great. I hope so. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys are claiming to be able to talk to my dead mother who is next to me right now. So I'll just go along with that. But the thing is, afterwards, the nightmare stopped. And I felt like there was a physical reaction at the moment when they asked her to turn around and like move on. I actually felt something lift off of me. And it was enough of an experience in that moment that I joined their meditation classes and just went into Meditation 101 at the Berkeley Psychic Institute. And I had a really good experience learning how to just bring my energy back, just be in my body, ground myself, not have my anxieties and my attentions going here and there and here and there all over the place, because you just energetically, you just get spread out everywhere you go if you're just leaving bits and pieces of yourself everywhere. So that just kind of taught me how to bring it all in and control my anxiety. And I had such a good experience with that that I went into their clairvoyant program. I learned how to read chakras and energies in other people. And that was a huge part of my detoxification, was to be able to sit there and read people's, you know, and see their issues come up, and to give like a voice to that and see them have their aha moments, kind of like I had when I had my first reading. So like, I still don't know how much of it was real. I do know that energy is real. I know that energy centers are real. I know that we have a very primitive part of our brain, the pineal gland. It's the first part of a brain in an animal that will develop. It's like pineal gland, then it's like reptilian brain, then it's mammalian brain, and then it's neocortex. So we got all of them, but we've also got that most primitive part of our brain that's still there. So if we can put our attention just on that most primitive part of our brain, all that brain does is it senses energy. It senses the energy of food, so it moves the organism toward food. It senses the energy of danger, so it moves the organism away from danger. So all it does is read energy. And if you can put your attention there and read from that place without thinking about it, without feeling it, or any of these other higher brain functions, you can just see images. So you sit there from the center of your head, you put your attention on other people's chakras, and the images start popping up in your head, and you just give a voice to them. You put your attention on their survival chakra, you know, the first chakra, and you see images of your mom and dad. Well, you know that you're seeing their mom and dad's energy in their survival chakra. Something's getting in the way of them feeling okay from their mom and dad in the sense of survival, like they feel threatened in some way. So it's kind of like that. You just give it a voice.
That's really interesting. And so you spent your time there and did the meditation groups and everything.
Yeah.
And then is that a practice that then continued for you? Or?
Yeah. So I mean, I did readings. I went to fairs and did readings. I led some youth groups and did meditations with them. I did a GLBTQ. That's not even the right letter. Someone called me on that. When I was young, it was GLBTQ. Now I don't even know all the different letters and symbols and everything else that's going on. But it was a youth group of queer youth that I led. I would do meditations and stuff with them, and they got a lot of benefit from it. When I moved here to Portland, there's the Everett House Healing Center, and they had people that were looking for readings. So sometimes they would call me up and send them over, and I would do readings for them. And so I got a lot of benefit from that. I had the idea of starting like a men's group here to work with some of the issues that, the toxic male masculinity that's in our culture, helping people work on their relationships with their sons and dads and grandpas and everything else, what it means to be a male. I mean, that's going to be more after my kids move out, because they just take so much of my time right now.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah. I need to spend less money taking care of kids. I need a smaller space. I need more time, and then I can do some of these other bigger things that I'd like to do.
Yeah. Kind of branching that interest, it's something that I've always thought about a lot, is sort of what it means to be a modern male, the prevalence of toxic masculinity, and its sort of intersection with veganism and the rejection of it.
Yeah.
Is that something that when you're at protests and things like that you experience with men interacting with you as an activist?
No, sure. I mean, we get guys that are they experience something new. They feel threatened by it, and their knee-jerk reaction is to bulk up and become aggressive. So we get a lot of people who will yell, spit. Some of our members have been spit on, and things like that. So it's just part of it. There was a saying, I remember, it was kind of like, I don't remember how it goes, but it's along the lines that you feel threatened, and you need to try to protect what's you feel like it's going to affect your ability to be a male, to be whatever it is you are in your life at that point. You feel threatened by the new information because it's asking you to change. It's asking you to be something different. It's telling you that you're not doing things quite right, and that can be extremely threatening to a lot of men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even just for me and my journey, the experience being like from Utah and telling my friends that I wasn't eating meat.
Yeah,
there was a lot of joking but bullying comments around my masculinity. Mm-hmm. And I did have to wrestle with that, and it seems so sort of generic and stupid to think that those connections exist between the idea that being a man and eating meat are interconnected.
Yeah, and that's a modern thing too. Like, gosh, our ancestors didn't eat meat like that. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, so even looking at our teeth and comparing us to other animals, our teeth are meant for vegetables and nuts and grains. Like, we do not have the shearer teeth that are meant for ripping meat off of bones or everything else. And even our ancestors realized that, okay, so in an immediate survival sense, maybe you get the fish, maybe you get the animal and you eat it. But for long-term survival, they needed to grow their food. Mm-hmm. And they knew that. So most of their diets were the grains that they grew, the rice that they grew, the vegetables that they grew. Meat was just like a very small portion. Mm-hmm. It was almost even just a flavor that they would add to it. It was not a staple of their diet. It's only recently that we've gotten into this habit of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, meat, everything centered around meat. And we've also never been sicker as a society. We've never had so much heart disease. We've never had so much depression, so much anxiety. And it is because of our meat consumption. Mm-hmm. Diabetes, myocellular lipids, It comes from animal fat because our body doesn't break down animal fat very well. So what happens is these myocellular lipids get in and block the transfer of the sugar out of our blood into our muscles. So if they get enough of that, then you're blocking the blood flow to your muscles, and that's diabetes. That's why people have to cut their damn feet off, because they don't have any blood flow to their feet anymore because they've blocked it all up with animal fat. If people understood just that basic connection of like, I'm eating meat and that's going to cause me to get diabetes and heart disease and die at a much younger age, I think just making that connection people would slow down their meat consumption. Even if they didn't care about the animals, just understanding the health connection.
Yeah, and that's all that information is so seemingly difficult to access. There's a lot of misinformation around vegan nutrition and plant-based nutrition.
Oh gosh, I've never heard, everybody's got to say, well, where do you get your protein from? If you're literally eating enough calories and you're not starving, you're getting enough protein. You could even, like my partner, eat 3 pounds of kale a day, and he's still getting enough protein from his kale to be okay. Like, it is such a non-issue, the protein. Like rice has protein, vegetables have protein, a lot of fruit, well, not so much fruit, but most of everything that you eat has some level of protein in it. And if you're eating just a little bit of beans, like you don't need very much protein in your diet, but even just some lentils, some beans, some rice, you're getting plenty of protein. Like my protein levels when my blood was tested in April was at a higher level of average. So even amongst meat eaters that they were comparing me to, my protein levels were higher than the green zone of average. Like, so here's the average amount of protein that people are eating. I was up at the higher end of it. And I don't eat meat. And I don't substitute for meat either. So like a lot of people think, well, I got to eat tofu because like if I'm not eating the chicken, I got to put the tofu in there. Or I got to put something that looks like meat in there. You don't have to do that either. No, it's complete nonsense. Like just eat what you want to eat. You don't have to substitute for meat. Meat was never an essential thing in your diet to begin with. You don't have to substitute for it.
Yeah, that part's psychological, right? That you have to substitute for it because it's just the way we were raised.
Well, that's what the seniors asked us. My partner did a presentation there on dementia and how whole foods, plant-based diet helped with dementia. But that was the question, like, well, what if we don't like tofu? Don't eat tofu. I mean, it's not my favorite thing either. I mean, I guess if there's like a stir fry with some tofu in it, I'll go with that. But it's not something that I seek out for, and certainly not for health reasons. If I eat it, it's just for taste reasons.
And did you decide to raise your kids vegan?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they've been vegan for several years now.
And what was your approach with that at a young age of explaining that kind of thing? And what was your approach then further on when they kind of had more independence?
Well, it's been slow because their mom is not vegan. And so their mom lives separate from us and they see her on the weekends. So it's been a slow process. I didn't want to force this on them. It was more of like, I took them to the potlucks. I took them to some of the events I was doing. They could see what I was doing. They could see other people that were doing it. They could hear the speakers, and especially as they got older, they both just started to care. Like it just made sense. Even as kids, they understood that eating meat is harming animals. Eating meat is bad for them. My son is a high-level soccer player. He's one of the best soccer players in his age group in the whole area. He knows that eating his vegan diet's giving him an edge. You know, because his body is not having to process all that crap all the time. His body can focus on getting stronger and faster, and that's what he is. He's faster, he's stronger than the other kids. And they've done studies for vegan athletes that, you know, their performance, their athletic performance is up to 30% better than people who are similar, who are eating a meat-based diet. So he knows he's got an extra edge going into these tryouts because he's vegan.
And how would you say their experience is on a social level in comparison to what it was like maybe for you 20 years ago. I mean, obviously Portland's a very different place as well, but
schools are terrible. I mean, that's another thing I'd like to get involved with is getting the dairy out of schools. I mean, dairy is just one of the worst things you can give to kids. I mean, it is like freaking animal fat. It's like everything that's bad about meat that's like in a liquid form that they're now drinking and poisoning themselves with the cortisol, the adrenaline, the myocellular lipids. It's just like a cup of death, and we're forcing it on our kids to break down their bodies at a young age. But anyway, so yeah, my kids have to deal with, they have to bring their own food to school because the school does not have good options. Their idea of vegan food is to offer like a little packet of carrots or a little packet of broccoli. And let me tell you, even though my kids are vegan, just straight up broccoli and carrots isn't going to do it for them. It needs to be cooked and spiced and put into something edible, you know, a stir fry or a soup or something that they can eat. It's not, you know, they're not going to just gnaw on carrots. My partner will, because he's practically a rabbit, but but no, kids, you need to make food for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just the amount of calories.
So there's no options in the schools for them. Mm-hmm. In high school, it's a little better for my daughter. They have a couple more options, some ramen soups with like some seaweed and stuff in it that she can eat. But in middle school, there is nothing to eat.
Interesting. But do you think that in general, kids have more open minds around the vegan diet, like their friends, for example?
Yeah, not so much.
Not so much.
No, it's not a popular thing amongst kids. We're really failing to impact them and get them the information that they need to make the right choices, the better choices for their lives. And a lot of it is that the dairy industry and the meat industry have their connections with school districts, and it's pushed on them from the second they go to school. The food, the snacks they're given, the meals they're given, it's all dairy and meat based. So it's just how they learn to eat. And, you know, there's that whole psychological component of making the association between, you know, being hungry and wanting to eat and what you want to eat. So kids learn that, oh, if I'm hungry, that pizza tastes good. Mm-hmm. If I'm hungry, that chicken wing tastes good. That's something I want to eat. So to break those associations that kids have with food that's harmful to them is very, very difficult, especially when it's being pushed on them. And it's also a very social thing at the school. I mean, the kids love the taste. I mean, who doesn't love the taste of fried protein that's been glazed with sugar, you know, or spiced up in a way that's extremely palatable? I mean, meat by itself without all that stuff it's gross. Mm-hmm. It doesn't taste good at all. You have to do all that stuff to make it taste good. And this is what they have been given. This is the associations they've made from the very beginning. So to break that and the socialness that's around it, it's very, very hard. And nobody's doing the work to make it happen. Mm-hmm. There's a group in Portland called Raven Corps, and their whole thing for the last year has been getting the dairy out of schools, but it's not working.
Yeah.
It's going to take a huge effort. It's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of groups. And it's just not happening, so we're failing our kids.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's such nonsense to think that when they go to middle school and they have to get their lunch, they are told that in order to get their food, they have to take 2 cartons of milk with them. And just everything that went into making that happen with those 2 cartons of milk. I mean, the raising of the cow, the forcible impregnation of the cow, the milking of the cow, the feeding of the cow, and everything that happened just to create that milk. When you can create a very good milk, a very delicious milk, by putting some oats and some water in a blender. And yet, we can't give our kids oat milk. We can't blend up some almonds for them and make it creamy and make an almond milk for them. We can't give them a rice milk. I mean, these things are easy to grow, easy to create. And yet we're going to put all these resources, and the government has to create all this money and subsidies into these animal agriculture just so they can break even or make even a little bit of profit on it, because it's so expensive, even in the horrible conditions, to raise those animals like that. And yet we still can't make the change. It would save the schools, it would save everyone so much money if we just put almond milk or rice milk or oat milk as the options. And it's healthier for them too. It's the most obvious thing in the world, and yet they won't do it. The animal agriculture, they've got their lawyers, they've got their people. They don't want to be, replaced. So, they get their money in with the politicians, and the system just keeps happening. It just goes on and on and on and on. And I don't think people realize how much god dang meat and dairy people are consuming and wasting. That's a whole other issue, how much food waste there is in this country. But just to give you one example, there is a slaughterhouse out in Boardman, Oregon, that's called 3 Mile Canyon. They have about 90,000 cows at this place. They're in these quarter-mile long enclosures where they never see the sun. They never get outside. I mean, it's hell for the animals. But beyond that, around this huge facility is 39,000 acres of crops that they have to grow to feed these cows at this facility. So they are pumping the groundwater with no restrictions. They're creating drought conditions. The methane from that place is a toxic greenhouse gas, which is accelerating global warming and climate change. So 39,000 acres is required just to feed the 90,000 cows in this one facility. And there are 11 mega facilities like that in Oregon. And there are dozens of smaller facilities like that in Oregon. And that's just Oregon. And we're not even considered like a top animal agricultural state. When you start moving out to the Midwest, it's even more than that. And then all the nitrates that are being caught from the animals, from their waste, from the fertilizer that's being sprayed onto the crops, all that is seeping into our groundwater that the people are drinking there in that area, and they're getting thyroid cancer. Their babies are being born with blue baby syndrome. It's causing all kinds of health problems for the people out there. And then, from a humanitarian perspective, the people who are working these facilities are all illegal immigrants. So they're not getting minimum wage, they're not getting health care. If some kind of crime is committed, they're not calling the police and getting any kind of help. So it's a slave labor humanitarian crisis too. So you've got an animal abuse crisis, you've got a humanitarian crisis, you've got an environmental crisis, all happening because of our consumption of meat and dairy, right here in our own backyard.
Yeah.
Health crisis too.
Yeah. And wrapping things up, what are some resources or advice that you'd have to people who are interested in learning more about the lifestyle and educating themselves?
Yeah, so just don't go it alone. We are tribal creatures. We are pack animals. We do better when there's others around us that are on the same page, that are offering support, advice, wisdom to us. So, you got to find your people. So like Northwest Veg, there's a lot of vegan groups. Go there, talk to people, meet with people, start going to potlucks. You can't detoxify by doing Meatless Monday or even 2 days a week or even 3 days a week. I mean, part of the presentation I gave is like, you need at least 21 days to really start to detoxify and break some of these associations with the cravings for meat, the food addictions, because it's very, very addicting. Like the casomorphines in milk have the same chemical addiction as drugs, as opioids. So it hits the same receptors in our brains. So you need 21 days of not drinking dairy just to get the cravings for the milk and the dairy out of your body. Minimum 21 days. So you need to commit to at least a 21-day vegan diet. And to do that when you have all these associations for all these years and all these patterns for all these years by yourself, you're probably not going to be successful. So you got to go find people to help you through this, recipes and support and people you can call to get you over. Just like if you had a drug addiction and you're coming off of drugs, you need that. So this isn't about reading a book or going to a website and getting the information. That all helps. Knowledge helps. It kind of creates the why as to why you're going to do this. It kind of gives you that extra boost of information. But the reality is you need people. You need help. So don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can leave things off there. If
Okay.
you have any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to share, now's
No.
a good time, but otherwise.
No, I mean, this is probably the most important decision and thing that you can do in your lifetime is to be vegan. So much of the world's problems are connected to animal agriculture that just the simple choice of being vegan is probably the most impactful thing that you can do in your entire life.